Alright, so now that you know how to take an excellent portrait, we're going to jump into Lightroom and I'm going to show you my editing workflow from the beginning to the end. Let's check it out. Now we're in Lightroom. And I've got a photo that I've selected here, and this is just your everyday standard portrait photo. All right, so the very first thing that I do is I go over here to the upper right hand side. First of all, this is our toolbar right here. This is where you have everything that you're gonna need. But you're gonna go all the way up here to the top to the left, and we're gonna select this little square, and that is our crop tool. I always crop my photos first thing. So if you go over here where it says original and you click that, that's gonna give you ratios that you can choose over here on the right hand side. So I like to choose a 4:5 ratio because that's the ratio that Instagram uses. So we're in this now. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna shrink this down a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna bring this up. Let's see. Right about there. I think I like that. Let's see. How about that? Okay, so now I click done. Boom. So this is the shot that we're going to edit fully right here. Okay. So after I've done my crop, go over here to your right-hand toolbar. We're going to scroll all the way down, and the second thing I do is I click these two boxes. The first one is to remove chromatic aberration, and then the second is to enable profile corrections. So I'm going to uncheck it, and you can see what happens to the photo whenever I do that. Whenever I click it, the photo kind of lightens up, but perspective changes just a tad. And if you can see right here, it says that I shot this with a Tamron 35mm. So inside Lightroom, it comes pre-loaded with all of the different profiles for pretty much any lens that you can think about. So this is the lens that I used, and whenever you put your photos in here, it should automatically select the lens that you used whenever you took the photo. So first things first, we cropped, then we came down, we scrolled all the way to the bottom, we checked remove chromatic aberration, and then we checked enable profile correction. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way back up here, and the very first thing that I'm going to do after that is I'm going to go up here, and this is my my masking tool. So I'm going to grab my mask, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask right over her face. So I'm going to click and drag, and I'm just going to create this literally in the shape of her head here because this is the focal point. Okay, so that's what I want right there. Now I'm going to go over to my tools here. Now if you hit the O button on your keyboard, it'll show you what the mask is highlighting. Okay, so I hit O, you can see it's highlighting her face, and I make sure that my feather is right around 73. The lower you go, you could see how hard the edges of the mask are, and you'll see any changes that you make to that in your photo. But if you go up and you feather right around 73, that's where I find it blends out in the photo just good enough to where you can't see it. So we'll go right around 73 somewhere. Okay, so we've done that. Now that I know that that's affecting only her face, I'm gonna hit the O again so that way I'm not distracted by the mask. And I'm going to go up here to exposure. I'm going to lighten her face just a couple clicks. We'll go 1, 2, let's go 3 clicks. So I lightened her face by 3 clicks on the exposure, so you can see it's a little bit brighter. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my blacks. What I do with my blacks is I click on that and I'm going to push the down arrow, and I'm just going to push the down arrow until I see, while I watch her face, until I see the detailed parts of her face just get dark enough to where I like it. So we're gonna go about 11. Yeah, I like that right there. So next, after I've done that, I'm gonna go down here and my clarity. I'm gonna add about 3 or 4, maybe 5 on the clarity. You don't wanna add too much on the clarity. Basically what that does, and I'll slide it all the way so you can kind of see what it's gonna do to her face. You can see how it like adds crazy texture and crazy, you know, detail, and the opposite way smooths her out a whole lot. And what I want is I want this to be a super sharp photo. So I'm gonna add just 3 or 4. Because I don't want it to look too overdone. So after I've done that, then I'm gonna go down to my sharpening. A lot of times I'll pull my sharpening way up. So we're gonna go way up. Let's go right around 70. I like that. So we got our face extra sharp, added a little bit to the clarity, drop the blacks just a little bit. I'm gonna bump the shadows just a tad, so that way we can kind of fill some of the stuff in the nooks and crannies on her face. So let's go up to 10 on that. Now I'm gonna go to my contrast. Now I'm gonna start turning my contrast up, and basically the contrast is gonna deal with the darker and lighter areas. So if I contrast up, I'm gonna move the contrast slider all the way so you can kind of see what it does there. So if you double click, by the way, just a little pro tip, if you double click this, it'll go right back to center. So normally what I like to do on my contrast is I like to go to about 10. That seems to be just about right for what I do. So you can see here what we started with is our exposure is plus 0.30. We got 10 on our contrast. We got our shadows up to 10. We took our blacks down to 11, 4 on the clarity, and 70 on the sharpness. Now this isn't an exact science. Every single photo is going to be a little bit different, but these are some of the areas that I normally go to, and these are slightly similar to what I do most of the time. So that's a mask that we just put around her face. So I like that. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click done. So now that I'm done, I'm going to go back up here to the right hand side to the mask, and I'm going to create another mask. So you can see the other mask is here. We can click on it and that'll bring our mask back up. But I want to create a new mask. So we're going to create a new mask, and I'm going to draw this over her face again. Let's see, I'm gonna open this here. Now I'm gonna hit my O on the keyboard. I'm gonna go down, and we've already got 73 on our feather, but I'm gonna click invert. Now you can see it chooses everything but her face. Now, obviously you can see the red encroaching in on her face, and we don't want that to happen because we already manipulated, because we already adjusted the colors on her face. So what I want to do is I want to start from the bottom arrow here, and I want to drag it until I can see that it's not affecting her face anymore from the top to the bottom. So you can see our gray right up here and a little bit right here. So now it's not affecting the face from top to bottom. Now I'm going to open it up wider until it's not affecting her face right about there. That's where I like it. So now you can see this kind of halo effect that we have here. So it's not affecting her face anymore. It's just affecting everything else. So I'm going to hit O again to get rid of that red on the outside. Now what I want to do here is I want her face still to be the focal point. So in order for her face to be the focal point, what I want to do is I want to make everything else in the background less noticeable. So how I do that, again, we're going to start up with our exposure. If you can remember, whenever we were on the face, we upped the exposure by 3 clicks. So we're going to down the exposure by 3 clicks. Well, actually, let's go 5 clicks. I like that. We'll down the exposure by 5 clicks. So now her face is the brightest part, which is the focal point, and that's kind of popping forward. So remember clarity earlier? Whenever we raise the clarity, you can see what it does, but we don't want to do that because we want her face to be the focal point. So we're going to lower the clarity by quite a bit, and it's almost going to make it seem and feel just a little bit blurry. But you don't want to lower it too much to where it's distracting or it doesn't look real. Now also with the sharpness, I'm going to drop the sharpness just right around 50 or so. So it's less sharp around the body, and we're doing that because we want the face to pop. So we've done that. I actually think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up here to my exposure, and I'm going to drop that a couple more clicks. Yeah, I think I like that right there. So that's pretty cool. So we've got that set. Our feather's good. So I feel like everything here is pretty good. We could drop our blacks just a little bit. Let's drop our blacks just a little bit. There we go. And then we can drop our shadows just a little bit too. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now what you can see, what we've done is you can see we've cropped the image. We've made her face pop out by adding some exposure on her face. We've sharpened it up a little bit, and then we've taken some of the exposure out of the background, so that way that's kind of pushed back a little bit, and her face is what's really popping forward. So now that we have that done, if you look at your return key, right above your return key, there's a slash key. If you hit the slash key, you can see what it looked like before, now what it looks like after. And you can see whenever I click it, up here it says before, and I click it, and that's our after. So far, that's what we've done. So we like that. You can tell a big difference on her face, the rest of the body. I mean, that's just awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our masks. I want to play with the eyes. So I've got my zoom tool here. I'm going to click into her eyes. I'm going to create another mask, but I'm just going to create a mask around her eye. So if we just create a mask around her eyeball, now what's cool about this is we can make her eyeballs pop a little bit, and that's gonna make it come out even more. So I've got this mask, her eyes are nice, pretty and blue. What I wanna do is I wanna make them a little bit more blue. So we're gonna go over here to our temp, and I'm gonna drop the temp a little bit. We're gonna go about 10, and that's gonna just add a little bit more blue to her eyes. But if you look at this eye, I know this one's kind of covered up, but if you look at this eye, you can kind of see how it's dark. What we wanna do is we wanna brighten those eyes up a little bit. So I'm gonna pop the exposure up about 3 there. And then we want those eyes to be super duper sharp. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna sharpen these bad boys up to about 62. So I like that. And let me, yeah, I think that's good. So I'm gonna control, click, duplicate, and then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna drag it back over to this eye. So now we have both eyes that have been, I mean, look at that. That looks awesome. We've added some color saturation to them. We brightened them up a little bit. Now if we go back to that little slash key above the return and we look at the before, now we look at the after. Now look at how those eyes sparkle. You know what? What I want to do is we're going to make those eyes sparkle a little bit more. So go back up here to your mask tool and then click the eye. And what I'm going to do, well, let's zoom back in just so we can see what we're doing here. I'm going to go to the whites and I'm just going to click the whites up just a little bit. So that way we can see the whites and her eyes just pop a little bit more. Yeah, we'll go 14 on that. And then we'll click this one and we'll go 14 on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, boom, boom. Okay, 14, let's go. All right, so yeah, those eyes are popping now. You can see the catch lights in her eyes from the soft boxes and it looks amazing. Before, after, before, after. One of the last things that we're gonna do here before we call this photo done is we're gonna go up here to our brush up at the right-hand corner. So we're gonna click our brush, and we're just going to set our anchor right there. Now I'm going to turn my exposure up 3 clicks. I'm going to turn my white up about 10. And so a lot of people's teeth, even if they're pretty like hers, she's got pretty teeth, but most people's teeth, they do live a little bit yellow. But we want to drop the temp to about 10 here. This is going to cause her teeth to be ultra white. So we're going to go to the clarity. We're going to bump the clarity just a couple notches. We're going to bump our sharpness so that way we got some sharp teeth here. And then we're going to come in here and I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. And we're just going to brush over these teeth. They're going to get brighter and they're going to get wider. So you can see this. This is awesome. Yeah, you want to focus on these teeth. And as you can see, is after you've made that adjustment, if you want, you can go back up here and you can adjust. So if you look, you can see, whoa, yeah, we don't want that. So you can just move it until they look just about right. And I think that looks perfect right there to me. So let's click done. Let's minimize. Let's go back out. Now, those actually those teeth might be just a wee little bright. So let's go back to our brush. Let's click this. I'm going to bump this down a couple notches. There we go. That's perfect. Yeah, so now our before and our after. Before and after. How amazing is that, guys? I mean, that is absolutely amazing. It's so cool how you can take a photo that looks like this and make it look like that. That is a perfect image, great headshot. And your photos are going to look awesome whenever you do some of these things. Let's do another photo. So we're going to go in, and I've got one guy here that I really like. Let's see. Let's do this guy right here. So we're going to start the same way we did the first one. We're going to go up to the right-hand panel up here where our toolbar is, and we're going to select the crop tool. We're going to click original, and then we're going to go to a 4:5 ratio. Remember, that's what Instagram's ratio is. So I'm going to create just a little bit of headroom for this guy. And I think right there is going to be about where I want it to be. So let's see. Yep, I think that's going to be perfect. So after we've done the crop, we're going to scroll all the way down. And remember, we're going to go and we're going to check both of these boxes. Remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. So again, the lens that I used was a Tamron 35mm 1.8. And so that'll show up there. Your lens will show up there, whatever lens it is that you used, and it'll correct the profile. So now we'll scroll all the way back up, and what we're going to start with is we're going to grab a mask. So I'm going to draw a mask over his whole entire face and his hair, because we want his hair to be part of this focal point right here. So let's see here. Let's make this a little bit longer. I'm actually going to tilt this guy a little bit. There we go. So we're almost there with that. Yeah, I think that's going to be good. You can see right here the hair and this, there's going to be a little bit of fall off there, but I think that's okay. I don't think that's going to make a big deal. Now remember, hit O on your keyboard. That'll show you what's highlighted, what we're actually changing. So we'll hit O again. So I'm going to go up to my exposure. We'll start with our exposure. We're going to do 1, 2, 3 clicks up. You know, and I know I did 3 clicks on the last one, and I'm doing 3 clicks on this one, but it's not going to be 3 clicks on every single one. It just so happens that these two were both exposed in a similar manner. But so anyway, so up on the exposure, 3 clicks. Then I like to go straight down to my blacks, and I start to look at the photo, and I tap down until my blacks and my details just get to the point to where I like them. So we're gonna stick with right around 12 right there. I like that. And then we're gonna bump our shadows up just a scotch. And that's really what that's gonna do is like the last one, it's gonna help like where you see all of this detail by the nose and underneath the eyes, and it's just going to lighten up some of those areas just a little bit. So we'll go to texture. Remember, we don't use a lot of texture, maybe like 4 or 5 on the texture. And then let's go to our sharpening, and we want this to be quite sharp. So I'm going to drop it at like 61 right there. Take our contrast, we're going to bump our contrast up until you can see it affecting the photo. So you can see I'm not making huge drastic changes to these photos, obviously, because we went through the whole entire course and I showed you guys how to take the photo awesome the first time, so that way you're setting yourself up for success whenever you go to the editing suite. So we'll go back down here. So that looks about right with everything that I want in the face. So we're going to click done there. Now I'm going to click this again, this guy right here. I'm going to draw another mask. Remember, this mask is going to affect everything except the face. So I start with the face. We put O on our keyboard. Obviously you can see it's only affecting the face, so I'm going to click invert. Just a quick reminder, right above invert is your feather, so make sure your feather is set somewhere around the 73 mark, just somewhere around there. So I'm going to start with long ways, and we're going to move this until we see it not affecting the face and the head in a long manner. Okay, so we're good to about right there. Now I'm going to stretch it sideways to the point to where we see it not affecting the head anymore. So it's about right there. But I think I want this to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to try to zoom out a little bit. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so I can stretch this down a little bit more. Yeah, I like that a little bit better. Okay, so now we're going to hit O. And we're going to go back up to our exposure. Remember, we turned it up by 3 clicks. Most of the time we'll turn it down by 3 clicks also, or by, you know, the exact same amount as we did in the opposite way. But on this one, I might go a little lower. So let's see what 3 clicks looks like. Okay, let's turn it down even more. Yeah, this one's going to need quite a bit. As you can see, it's pretty bright. So whenever we drop it a couple times, it doesn't change a whole lot. So we want it to be, yeah, I'm thinking about the 150 mark. So as you can see, I mean, on the last one, whenever we dropped it by 3, 4, or 5 clicks, I think it was, it kind of made the background dark enough pretty quick. This one, because the way the exposure was set whenever I took the photo, it needs a little bit more, as you can tell. So don't be afraid to bump it down a little bit more, but you don't want to overdo it. So remember, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to push everything outside of his face into the background. We're trying to leave his face in focus. So after we drop the exposure on that a little bit, we're going to go straight down to the clarity, and we're going to move the clarity slider until we can see the clarity starting to move, starting to get softer everywhere else. About right there. Then we're going to go down to our sharpness. We're going to do the same thing. And see, I'm just moving this and I'm looking at it at the same time. Perfect. so I can see what's happening. So we just want to make it completely soft around the edges. And you can obviously still see some detail, and you can see his knuckles and the wrinkles and certain things like that. So you can still see that detail, but we're just going to soften it a little bit so that way the face stays the sharpest part of the photo. So we've got that. Let's drop our blacks just a little bit. Then let's drop our shadows just a little bit. Yeah, let's go right there. I like that. That looks really good. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the eyes. Remember what we did last time whenever we did the eyes? We are gonna get another mask because we're gonna go over the eye. You know, make it the same shape as the eye. Okay. So again, he's got kind of blue eyes. So what we want to do is we want to drop the temp on his eyes. I think we're going to go a little bluer on his eyes. We're going to go about 15. We're going to bump the exposure a couple. Yeah, let's go 5. And then I'm going to turn my sharpness up because I want my sharpness to be there pretty good. And remember, we want to turn our whites up so that way the whites in their eyes pop pretty good. But you don't want it to look fake. Okay, so then we're going to control click, duplicate. And you can see, once I move the effect, you can see wherever I put it, you can see the effect behind it, right? So we put that right over the other eye, and bam. We've got our eyes looking awesome. Look at that. I mean, such a huge difference. So remember, if we go above the return key, the little slash key, you can see the before, you can see the after. Before, after. Before, after. In this one, we're gonna mess with the colors a little bit. So I'm gonna scroll down here, and just in case you guys don't know this already, so you have your hue, your saturation, and your luminance. We call this the HSL color sliders. Okay, so these sliders you're gonna play with quite a bit. Let's see if we can take his hoodie right here, and we can actually turn his hoodie to be a different color. So let's see, I think the hoodie might live in the aqua range. I might be wrong. Let me go to the hue and aqua. Let's see, yep, see how the hoodie changes? Let's make his hoodie gray. We go to saturation, we can go to aqua, we can pull that all the way down, and you can see how the hoodie basically turns gray. I kind of like that look. We got this blue. Obviously, if you take the blue all the way down, then that's going to happen too. It's going to get grayer and grayer. We drop our green a little bit because you can see there's green right in his hoodie right there. We can take the green all the way down. The only problem with that is whenever we did that, it's likely that affect his eyeballs a little bit. So what we can do is we can probably go back up and we can click our little masks here, and we can bring the blue back in the eyes. Let's move this all the way down and see what we get. So because we sucked a lot of the blue out, it's going to require a lot to push it back in. Let's just look at this and see what it looks like. It might not be right. Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. So now, before and after. Before and after. That's so crazy. Such a big change. Remember, always start up at the top right hand side with your crop tool, change to a 4:5 ratio, then scroll all the way down, remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction, then you're going to come back up, you're going to do one mask on the face to sharpen, then you're going to do one mask on the everything but the face to turn the clarity and the sharpness down, and then you're going to just work from there. And you guys will get your own flavor over time and make adjustments the way that you like them. All right, there you have it. That's how I edit my portraits from start to finish. I know if you use these techniques, it'll take your portrait game to all new levels. So thanks for watching my video on editing. Next, check out my video on Instagram, Facebook, and creating content.